Hey guys, so 3 things to know before we get to my 5 Mark II review. So first, I thought that Sony phones used to be the best on the market a few years ago, but not really the case for 2018 and 2019. Second, that changed this year with the Xperia 1 Mark II, which is an all-around excellent phone. Third, I do prefer larger phones to smaller ones, but phones have started getting so large these past few years, and the Xperia 5 Mark II is basically the size of a flagship from a few years ago. So with all that in mind, here's my review. First, similar to the larger Xperia 1 Mark II, this phone has just about every feature. So it has a 6.1-inch fast refresh rate display with 1 camera on the front. On the back it has 3 cameras, including a telephoto and a wide angle. On the inside it has the flagship Snapdragon 865 and 8GB of RAM. It also has 128GB internal storage and microSD card support. The battery is 4000 mAh, which is huge for a phone this size, but unfortunately it does not have wireless charging. It also has USB Type-C at the bottom, a camera button, a Google Assistant button, a fingerprint scanner which also has the power, a volume rocker, and even a headphone jack. It also has stereo front-facing speakers, and always on display, and what is now the very rare notification light. The phone is water resistant and has 5G in some regions, but not the USA. It launches on December 4th with some pre-order bonuses, and it costs $950, a $250 drop from the Xperia 1 Mark II. Now, it's impossible to discuss this phone without comparing it to the 1 Mark II. I don't want to do too much of that here, because I have done a full comparison video, but both do have a couple big advantages over the other, such as a 4K display and wireless charging, versus a fast refresh rate display and better battery life. But the biggest difference between them is the size. So as mentioned, phones during the past few years have gotten so much larger, and honestly the 5 Mark II it really should be the perfect size for a lot of people. It's the most comfortable phone that I've used this year, and while there are some cases where I do prefer using a larger display of the 1 II, if I'm watching of course a movie at home, something like that, then I do prefer the 1 II. But the 5 Mark II is better for me in most situations. So the weight, the edges, the materials, really everything else has been pretty much ideal. It feels like with this phone, Sony really focused on comfort and not just cramming in excessive specs like 16GB of RAM or a massive display. And that's really refreshing to see when phones like the Note 20 Ultra are just really starting to go overboard. It's also awesome to have the headphone jack back, which is something I was missing from recent Sonys. The battery life on this is excellent, and unless you plan on gaming for a full day, then you really should not have to worry about charging it before bed. So the high refresh rate, it does not have a big effect on the battery life, and the smaller screen does help it a lot. So just for comparison guys, the iPhone 12 Pro costs $50 more, and that has a 2815 mAh battery. That means the Xperia 5 Mark II has a 42% larger battery, and when I do the comparison with the iPhone, I definitely expect the 5 Mark II to easily win that. The 5 II also easily beat the 1 II in my battery comparison video due to the larger screen. So this is one area where Sony has made a big improvement over Xperias from 2018 and 2019, but it's definitely not the only area. The 3 cameras on the back are identical to those on the 1 Mark II, though it is lacking the 4th depth sensor camera. Now, in my use so far, I haven't noticed a difference, and the depth sensor camera is definitely the least important lens. Just like the Xperia 1 II, this has all the same features and modes, and it also is the first phone ever to record in 4K slow motion, so it even has some extra stuff. Overall, the point and click and the point and film results are great quality. The biggest thing missing here is a proper night mode, as cameras like the Pixel 5 perform a lot better in extremely dark areas. That said, if you enjoy playing around with the manual controls, then it's probably the best phone out there, with the Photo Pro app and the Cinema Pro apps, because of those you can really customize everything that you want. Sony also really needs to improve the front camera some. The quality is decent, but for some reason it only records in 1080p mode, not in 4K or 60 FPS. The display is only Full HD+, but given the size, a high resolution is not really necessary. So the scrolling and everything is super quick due to the fast refresh rate, the fast touch rate, and the internals. Now gaming on this is excellent, and just like with the Xperia 1 Mark II, I really like having the additional space with the movie aspect ratio. Now if the aspect ratio looks weird to you, I'll just say that it did for me as well when I first saw it on last year's Xperia 1, but today I'm completely used to it. So this, for example, for social media or web browsing, you have more content on screen. The main area where it's not as good is in 16:9 YouTube videos, such as the one you're watching right now. One other downside is the screen does not get that bright. Not as bright as most other flagships. Though, to be honest, I have not really been in a situation yet where it's been an issue. Over the years, Sony has gotten closer and closer to stock Android, and that makes the Xperia 5 Mark II's UI one of the best on the market. Now, Sony almost entirely uses Google apps for the 5 Mark II, so I do miss a couple Sony apps like the album app. If you guys have older Xperia phones, you definitely know that. But overall, it's better having less bloat, and not needing to choose between two versions of most apps. The fingerprint scanner is not 100% accurate, but it's still better from recent Sony scanners. Now, the placement in combination with the power button makes it extremely fast and comfortable to use. The front-facing speakers are also extremely balanced, and they output excellent quality. Now, I know a lot of people in the United States are not going to be happy about the phone not supporting 5G, but for me personally, I've never really cared that much about it, especially this year when I'm not traveling. I don't really download big files outside of Wi-Fi range, and I really don't have many issues with my signal. Now, that said, of course, everyone's situation is different, so I do hope Sony adds this next year with the 5 Mark III. My biggest issue with the Xperia 1 Mark II was a $1,200 price. So in my review I said that it was worth buying for fans of Sony phones, or those willing to pay full price for the latest flagship, but it was still a tough sell for those who are not phone enthusiasts. That's true for any phone over $1,000 in today's market. Fortunately, this phone is under $1,000, and it's much easier to recommend for the average consumer. This would be the first phone that I recommend for those who aren't already tied to Apple's ecosystem, and it's also my favorite phone on the market. This phone and the 1 Mark II are extremely close in my rankings at number 1 and number 2, but the biggest differences for me are the battery size and the comfort. Now, don't get me wrong, the 1 II is still very comfortable to hold, but it's just that the 5 Mark II is even better in those areas. The 5 II is still lacking a few things like wireless charging or 5G in the USA, but overall it's still an excellent phone that should be getting much more attention than it actually is. So I'll be using this phone as my daily once it arrives in early December, so be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more updates. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and as always, thanks for watching.